So, hello everybody, to our audience present today in Santiago, to everybody who is joining us remotely. Welcome to the webinar. Today we are greeting you from Santiago de Compostela, where we currently have the first day of our workshop on relatedness, knowledge complexity, and development in cities. And now it's my pleasure to introduce our lecturer for today, that's Neave O'Clery, and she's currently a fellow researcher at the Marshallian Institute in Oxford, and her work is concentrating on economic development and economic complexity in cities using tools of graph theory and method science. The floor is yours. Thank you very much. Okay, so as I said, my name is Neave O'Clery. I'm a senior fellow at the Marshallian Institute in Oxford. The work that I'll be presenting today is joint work with Francois, who was a master's student who got started on this work a couple of years ago while he was a master's student in Oxford. He's currently at Kinsey, with Samuel Heroy, who's a current postdoctoral researcher in my group, and Maria Diaz, who was a research fellow in Oxford, and he's now currently based on Spotify. Okay, so the general question that I'll be discussing today is the idea that we observe clusters of firms in cities. So clusters of firms that do similar types of things. For example, in San Francisco, as you all know, very well known cluster of high-tech firms. So those firms choose to locate there, despite the very, very high cost in San Francisco line, because there's benefits from locating close proximity. Right? There are various things that these firms share. In the case of San Francisco, one could hypothesize that's mainly a pool of people. A pool of people who interact, who engage, who share ideas. In other cases, firms might locate in close proximity because they sell things and buy things to one another. So you could think about the car industry, the heavy industry, Detroit. You might have lots of different types of firms that produce different types of components of cars, and they locate in close proximity because they buy and sell to each other, and fashion costs are high for these physical goods. So there are different reasons why firms might choose to locate together in cities. And understanding the relative importance of these reasons, that's sort of the key question that we'll be taking today. So, as early as the 1800s, Marshall proposed three key channels underlying the sort of agglomeration externality. And that's not to say that there aren't other channels, but today we'll be focusing on these three channels. So the first one is labor pooling. The idea that if you have clusters of similar firms, they will benefit from shared labor pool. That provides protection or benefit for the firms, but also for the workers. The workers have an opportunity to also pick and choose from different firms and keep it still. So input sharing, this is again back to the idea that firms locate together because of high central cost, and so they often locate in close proximity both their customers and their suppliers. And then the third channel we're going to refer to as knowledge sharing, which comes back to the San Francisco example, where high-tech firms predominantly locate in close proximity because they want to learn from each other. They want their employees to interact, they want their R&D teams to collaborate, they want to learn from each other and pool knowledge. And so these three channels that we're going to be examining. And so the key question here is really, which of these three channels is most important? You know, and this is a question that has been around for a long time, but it's a little bit tricky to answer because, in fact, all three channels predict the same thing, that you're going to have clusters of firms located together, and for a long time there hasn't been a sort of a methodological toolbox for disentangling the importance of these different factors. So obviously, from an industrial policy point of view, this is a very important question, because if you're interested in attracting new firms to your city, you want to know what are the push and pull factors for those firms. Okay. Okay, so as I mentioned, this has been a sort of intractable problem for a while, and it is only relatively recently that a methodological framework has been proposed to tackle this question. So, in a pivotal paper, which was published by Ellison Glaser in 2010, proposed to look not at individual industries, but at the co-agglomeration patterns, the co-location patterns of industry pairs. So, between the co-agglomeration of industry pairs and co-agglomeration or co-location, and that relationship with other types of linkages between these industries. So I'm going to skip forward for a second and we'll go back. Okay, so it's quite useful to actually think of these patterns from a network perspective. It's not necessarily how it was initially described in some of the earlier papers, but I think it's instructive and important in order to explain this idea of using linkages between industries in order to understand the relationship between co-location or co-agglomeration in each of these three channels. So here we have a sort of schematic diagram here, and we have on the left-hand side our co-agglomeration linkages. So this is a network of industries where each of the edge weights corresponds to the strength of co-location between each industry pair. And so we can think of these linkages, these individual edges, as being some combination of each of the three channels, right? And so this is just a sort of schematic idea behind this sort of methodological approach. Okay, so in the original paper by Ellison Glaser and Hare, they focused on trying to understand what's the most important determinant, so which of the three channels are most powerful across all industries. So effectively, they looked at the relationship between the edge weights across the whole network and the edge weights of the other three networks of linkages. And we'll discuss in a minute how those linkages were measured. One of the Ellison Glaser Hare, the first in the series papers. And then the second paper, which I'm going to discuss briefly today, was one that I was working around along with my colleagues Dario Guidato and Frank Nemka at the Harvard Center for International Development, where I worked for Oxford. And so we effectively said, well, this is very interesting, but there seems to be some dependence of labor input output knowledge linkages on co-agglomeration patterns, but it doesn't really, it doesn't seem natural that there would be a singular dependence across all industries. It seems more natural that individual industries would have different dependence. So you would expect that high-tech industries would have, a much greater dependence on knowledge linkages, and heavy industry would be much more dependent on, say, input output customer supplier linkages. So we try to modify this network, this framework, in order to allow for differential impacts of these different channels. And then the paper that I'm going to mainly focus on today is sort of the third paper in the series, alongside the co-authors that I already mentioned, which in a way takes an intermediate scale approach to this problem. So instead of thinking that all industries would have the same dependence on each of the three channels, or each industry would have a differential dependence, we take this from a meso-scale, intermediate scale approach, where we say that there's most likely clusters of industries that tend to co-locate across cities that, as a cluster, have a particular dependence on one of these, one or more of these channels. So you're probably going to have a cluster of services-related industries that are more reliant on labor without including channels. You're going to potentially have some manufacturing industries making heavy goods that rely more on customer supplier channels. So what we try to do is apply some network analysis approaches here in order to discover, to find this structure in the pattern of co-agglomeration or co-location linkages that can be mapped in a sense to each of these individual channels. So we're kind of taking an intermediate or mesoscale approach relative to the first two things. Okay. So before we go any further, I'll just briefly mention the data that we use to construct these linkages. So one of these are industry relationships. So the first one, so this is sort of our left-hand side in a sense of our regression analysis, is what here the EG index, the Ellison-Baser index. I'll show you the equation for that in a second. But that is taken, so we could try to be consistent across both the two papers in terms of the different indices that we use on the data sets. So the original Ellison-Baser curve paper actually used much earlier manufacturing data, but the later two papers, so both of the papers I was involved in, uses a consistent data set across both of those. So this is the description of that data set, the data that corresponds to the second two papers. So we basically use patterns of employment across cities, or metropolitan areas to be specific, and industries in 2003. That's the US county business patterns. In order to measure labor linkages, we use a correlation of employment in occupations, really, between industry pairs. And we use US occupational employment statistics in order to gather that data. Now, I will mention, and I'll mention again later, we're focusing on US data here. For that reason, some of our metrics are, I think, slightly less than ideal. I think there are potentially some better metrics that capture labor linkages. Many of you will be familiar with using labor mobility patterns to do that kind of thing. That isn't available in the US at the level of application. So I think that's for the future avenue. So here we're just using occupation, employment and occupation. And then we have, of course, input-output linkages in order to measure supplier relationships between industry pairs. And finally, we're not going to focus so much on the knowledge pooling. There's some kind of upstairs. Dance class, I think. We're not going to focus so much on the knowledge pooling channel here for a couple of reasons. Firstly, traditionally, knowledge pooling between industries has been captured using patent data. But patent data really only comprehensively covers very few industries. So very few industries really are active in patenting, so it's inherently problematic. And it would reduce our data set quite significantly if we tried to sort of only keep industries that were active in patenting. So I think that's a very interesting avenue of future work. Some of the results I show here will have some of the knowledge sharing linkages included, but the majority of it will focus on the first two channels, so the labor pooling and input-output channels. Okay, so that's just a bit of an overview. Okay, so again with the measuring co-agglomeration across, this is an industry level metric, which effectively measures how closely conserved patterns of location are across industry pairs, right? So if two industries tend to locate in similar places, they're going to have a high EG index. If they tend to locate in different places, they're going to have a low EG index. This index is really just capturing the patterns of co-location across industry. For the purpose of the third paper, we have used the original EG index. In the second paper, with Frank and Dario, we've also tested our analysis for a second potential co-location metric, which is just a correlation of employment and classification. So, okay, so that's our, okay, so back to our schematic. Okay, so what we've already discussed is effectively how we're going to construct our industry linkages. So at this point in time, we haven't actually used any information out the network, but this is just useful. In a way, you can see this at this point of the presentation as just a representation of entries in a matrix, right? It's an industry matrix, and we're interested in basically correlating those entries, which are the edge weights in these networks. Yeah, so the first paper is translating this into sort of a network framework. It's just basically correlating the edge weights, the adjacency matrix, in the co-agglomeration, for the co-agglomeration network with each of the other 3 networks individually. So we don't try to put them all in a regression at the same time. We actually do co-agglomeration with each of them individually. So that's what I'm going to show here. Okay. But I guess schematically, we do think of this as co-agglomeration being some kind of composition of each of these 3. We don't really know what strictly speaking, from a mathematical point of view, we don't really know exactly what the functional form is. So we're just going to assume it's some kind of additive function at this point in time. Okay, so this is basically a replication. So this table is contained in the second paper, and the first column is just a replication of the original health and basic care analysis, which was only for manufacturing industries from the 80s. Okay, so it's a subset of industries, and we show the coefficients. These are, so what we're interested here are basically the sizes of the coefficients in each of these regressions. And so the original paper found that input-output linkages were the most sort of powerful, most powerfully connected in a sense, associated with the co-location linkages. So we replicated this with laser data from 2003. With manufacturing only, and we actually found using laser data that actually labor and effects were similarly strong, but that the knowledge linkages in both cases were relatively weak. But in our study, second study, we also had access to services data. So as we know, services industries are increasingly a very important part of sort of modern knowledge economies, particularly in the US context. So that was very important to try to add those to the analysis. And so the third column is just including services. And so unsurprisingly, we find that actually in that case, the labor component is more important, right? The services industries are very interested in recruiting workers that are, have the right to work on them. And so when we include both of those together, all industries, we see a bit of a stronger effect for labor compared to input. Later in this paper, I'm not going to show the figure, but we actually did go back and get some longitudinal data between I think it was 1950 and 2010, and we looked at these coefficients, so including all industries at the same time, and looked at the evolution of these coefficients over time. And what we saw, as one might expect, is that actually the coefficient corresponding to labor channel was increasingly stronger relative to the labor channel. So this sort of like pooling mechanism has become stronger over time. In relative sense. Okay, so the main objective of the second paper was to investigate the idea that actually it seems somewhat unrealistic that all industries would have a similar dependence on these channels, right? And so we did a very simple modification of the original framework. And we effectively well, if we go back to our network representation, in this case, we just look at the relationship between the edges connected to, so if we pick a node, look at the central node, and we just look at the relationship between the pattern of edge weights, the edges attached to that node, with respect to those same edges in the other. So that's effectively what this equation does. I find it more instructive to think about network edges than matrix entries. Okay, so basically what we did is we left this framework very wide industry. And yes, from a concrete point of view, it's basically looking at the relationship between, so for an industry I, this is the relationship between all of the linkages connected to me. So basically from me, industry I, to all other industries, and looking at the relationship between linkages in colocation relative to input output and labor. And so the coefficient we would expect for industries that were heavily dependent on input output linkages, we get a larger coefficient, and vice versa for labor. And so here we basically plot on the x and y axis the labor coefficient versus the input output coefficient. And we see for things like architecture and engineering, arts and culture, media, all of these which creative industries where the people are what matters, they have high labor coefficients. And then things like heavy industry, machinery, hardware, things like that, actually the input output coefficient is higher. And so to some extent, this analysis validates the idea that actually it's, we would expect these sort of the relative importance of each of these channels to differ quite significantly by industry. Okay, so I won't go into, since this talk is really primarily about the results of methodology and results of the third paper, I'm not going to go into too much detail about the other results in this second paper. But I think one key thing that we did do was to show that, so many of you will be familiar with this idea of trying to use the presence of related activities to predict the, so for industry I, and industry I is not present in a particular region, but there are various other industries that are present. This idea that the presence of these related industries is highly predictive of the sort of development of the employment growth of a particular industry. And so we show in this paper that actually using the information contained in these coefficients, which basically tell you what type of relatedness is important, right? So this is basically what this result is saying, is that different types of relatedness between industries is important for different industries. And you can use these coefficients in order to improve your model for predicting, say, employment growth. That was one of the sort of key ambitions that I had with this work, was to see if we can actually make these models that look at sort of the presence of relation employment and make them a bit more specific, right? What do we mean by relatedness? Well, here we can see that actually some industries have quite clearly different sort of, affinities in a sense, in terms of the type of relatedness that Okay, so now we return to our key schematic. And so we've looked at sort of this original framework, which looked at all the edges, and we've looked at the second framework, which says, okay, each node individually has some kind of, is kind of embedded locally, very locally, in a different kind of pattern of edge weights, right? And we compared this across networks. So if you think about this from sort of network structure perspective, you would really think that actually it's quite likely that there are clusters of industries in the co-agglomeration network that have, that are sort of that represent the natural scale at which, these sort of differences in channel importance occur, right? And so this would be important. So many of you will be familiar with, say, the product space methodology, right? So we can actually think of the product space as an instance of the co-agglomeration network, right? It really is on the product level. The edges of the product space practice are really just co-location of exports across countries, right? So on the edges are sort of effectively they're described as a capability overlap, but they are really exactly the same. They are really analogous case at a country product level for this co-agglomeration network. And so, in a way, what our decomposition is doing is it's assigning a type of capability overlap to different parts of the network, right? And if we think about sort of net diversification on a network in the way that the product space does, are all of you familiar with the product space? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So the product space is a network of products, very similar to this. So the edges are they're a measure of capability overlap between products, but in practice they're estimated based on sort of the left-hand side here. So patterns of co-export across the country. And so we use the product space in order to describe diversification possibilities of countries, but really on to the next level is we need to understand what's driving these capability overlap, right? In a way, this is an attempt to decompose that capability overlap into its constituent types of capability overlap. And so our efforts to decompose the co-agglomeration or general capability-based network into communities is really thinking about, okay, so if you're a country and you're located in a specific part of the network, and that's within a certain community that's, say, labor-dominated, right? The capability overlap. So basically, to move into a new product, you really need to build the capabilities, right? As opposed to another community which might be more focused or more associated with inter-export relationships, then your strategy to move into new products or industries in that community would actually be quite different, right? Because you will need to build new connections between firms, right? And so, in a way, what we're trying to do is assign regions, in a sense, of this general network to more specific types of capabilities. Okay, so that's our idea. And so we have generally we have a two-step process to do this. So first of all, we're going to apply community detection to our co-agglomeration networks to the left-hand side. And I'm actually going to go into some details of the community detection algorithm because I feel like in some cases this is often glossed over. So I thought, if you have a bit of time today, I'll actually just hit you guys with the mathematics and see how it goes. And then we're going to actually take these communities and look at the association between the linkages inside those communities and our different channels, right? The same portions of the network in our other networks. Okay, so what is community detection? I'm sure many of you have heard of this before. So the idea is that we want to decompose our network into distinct groups of nodes, each of which are called, so we're going to call a group of nodes a community. We're going to call a particular division of the network into groups a partition. Okay, so they're just slightly different phrases. When I say community, I mean a group of nodes. When I say partition, I mean the actual division, because we can have many divisions, right? There can be many different communities. Okay, so there are quite a few different approaches to finding communities in a network. We are going to focus on one that takes a dynamical perspective. So actually my own PhD was focusing on the interaction between network structure and dynamics. The idea that we can use dynamics, so what I mean by dynamics is some process running, a bit like a diversification process, running on the network, so some kind of movement on the network, in order to uncover properties of the structure. And so we're gonna explain to you a little bit Markov stability. So the idea here is that we let a random walker, so this is just, think of this as a person, a female random walker actually, and she's just gonna start on the node, any node really, and she's gonna walk. And she's gonna walk for a characteristic point, a characteristic length of time, right? So that length of time is going to be a parameter that we can control. And she's going to become trapped in regions of the network for various lengths of time, depending on how long we let her go. So she's going to discover effectively these regions of the network, these groups of nodes that she becomes trapped in, right? So she basically, you know, she jumps from one node to the next with the probability. So she's based on node, and she jumps to the next node with probability based on the edge weight, right? And so over time, she'll become trapped in certain parts of the network because they're more tightly connected in high edge weights. And we're going to use the fact that she becomes trapped in order to discover these communities. That's the general idea. Okay, so don't worry if this is, I'm just going to show you some of this. It's not critical to the key results, but I just thought it would be nice to show it for some of you who are interested. So we can describe this random walk process on a network using a very simple updating rule. So P is it's a vector of probability, so it's the same length as the number of nodes in the network. And it basically contains the probability of a walker being on that node at that time, right? So P subscript T is the probability of a random walker being on that node at that time, okay? And so our matrix M is just, it's basically M is a sort of renormalized version of the adjacency matrix. The adjacency matrix is just the matrix containing the edge weight. And we can let this process run, and eventually these probabilities will converge. So eventually, PT plus 1 will equal PT, and there'll be no more updates. So this is what we call stationarity. You can actually compute closed form solutions for stationarity, the vector of long-term probability. It's basically let the random walker continue to infinity. That's the probability of the random walker visiting the node. This is actually equal to the eigenvector centrality. Has anyone heard of that? Yeah. Okay. So eigenvector centrality, I was mentioning earlier in the talk that you can apply network analysis to lots of different types of networks. So road network, and centrality will tell you how important the nodes are. Eigenvector centrality is one of those centrality metrics. Okay, but we're actually not interested. Well, okay, so we are somewhat interested in stationarity, but not in the same way. Okay, so that's the general process. This very simple equation describes the random walk process on the network. Okay, so what we really want to know is, effectively we want a metric that captures when this random walker gets trapped in communities, right, in communities, and for various times. So time, this T here, is our parameter that controls how long the random walker has been walking on the network. Okay, and so I'm not going to go into it in great detail, but this equation here, R T, capital RT, is basically describing the probability, so the entries of this matrix. This is that community by community matrix in the end, which its entries depend on time t. And the entries of this matrix represent the probability that a walker who started in community I ends up, the entry ij is the probability that a walker who started in I ends up in j by time t. Okay, so this matrix H basically collapses the probability, the random walk probabilities within communities. So H is just a matrix that encodes your community structure. So it's a matrix which has got n rows, so that's the number of nodes, and it's got C columns, that's the number of communities. Okay. So what we effectively want to do is we want to maximize, so we want to find a partition that maximizes the probability that a node that starts in I ends in I, right? That's going to be our communities, right? So you want, basically you want it to stay trapped in the community, right? And so we basically end up with an equation which is the sum of the diagonal entries. So this is just saying that we want to maximize the probability of a random walker starting in each of those communities. So these are all the diagonal entries, and we just sum over them. That's basically what this says. Okay, so we haven't discussed is where we get H from, right? So here in these matrices, in these equations, H is just an input, but we haven't actually discussed where we're going to get H from, right? This is basically saying, given a H, this is the probabilities, right? This is given a H, this is the sum of the probabilities of a random walker starting in each community and staying in that community at time t. So, what we need to do is we need to test a whole bunch of H's, which are basically partitions, right? So H encodes the partition. And we're going to try to find a value or a matrix H, so that is a node partition that maximizes this small r. Are people already following? Yeah. Okay. Okay, so sometimes when people talk about community detection, there's also quite a bit of confusion in the sense of how it works. So you basically need two ingredients. You need something that you're trying to maximize or minimize, right? Which is your kind of objective function in a sense, right? Right. This is what you think to find a good community. And there are a lot of other options. There's a really well-known one called modularity, something you might have heard of. There are a lot of different, a lot of researchers have proposed different equations that they want to optimize, right? That they think basically, capture the essence of what a good community is. Okay. There are reasons why I like this one, which I'm not going to go into now because it's a math lecture. But suffice to say, this is a good one. And we're going to try to maximize this equation. We're going to try to find a way to maximize. Okay, so the second component that you need is you now be able to test it on H's in order to try to find one that actually maximizes this equation. Okay. And so for that we use Neave, which is a sort of a testing algorithm. So this is just a very quick overview of what Neave does. It's very intuitive in a sense. If I asked you to come up with an algorithm to try to do this, you might come up with something similar. Okay, so what it does is it starts off with every node in its own community, right? There's n nodes and n communities. And then for each node, in a random order, so one thing to mention for you here is every time you run this, you'll get a slightly different answer. It's not deterministic, it's stochastic. You need to run it a lot of times and take the average in order to try to figure out if it's a good answer. And we'll come back to that in a second. So you want to basically start with each node in its own community in a random order, and each time you run it, the order will be different. And then you go around each node and you try adding each of its neighbors and connecting them in the community. You recompute the stability. You see if the stability is higher for the whole network. And if it is, you keep the merge. If not, you keep the merge. You do this for all nodes. And then you end up with a new community structure, right? So some nodes are merged, some are not. Then you basically collapse this network into, so each community is collapsed to become a node. So the size of the network shrinks. And then you repeat this algorithm and you keep going until you're not able to increase stability anymore. So I'm going to show this visually. Start off with a network. You try to reassign nodes into communities through testing every neighbor. Once you're finished with that, you collapse the network. So each community becomes a node. You repeat the same thing again until you can't optimize, you can't increase stability any further. Okay. So what we do is we run this algorithm potentially thousands of times on a network in order to see whether the community produced is robust, whether you get the same answer. If the network is very well structured with really good defined communities, you're going to get very low variability. If the network is not very well defined and it's a bit messy and there isn't really clear communities, you're going to get high variability, and that's how you kind of know. So when people publish papers on this stuff, everything looks beautiful. all the communities are really well defined. The reality is real world data, that's very the case, so you have to make some judgments. Okay, so we apply this to our network. How am I doing on time? Okay, so we apply this to our network, the EG network, and we also apply it to a bunch of shuffle networks, I think these words are shown here, which are basically randomized. So we take our network and we just randomize the edges, right? So it's another check in a sense. If we have good structure, our results should be much better for our network compared to others. So that's a good trick in anything to do with networks. Always compare what you do to some kind of randomized experiment, because it's a powerful way of showing you've got something meaningful. True of basically everything that is. Okay, so that's the two examples. There's quite a lot going on in this figure. So the dark, the sort of dark gray black curves are just showing the number of communities for different times. So as we vary our parameter T and we let the random walker walk for longer and longer, the communities that they find tend to be smaller. Sorry, tend to be larger. Tend to be larger. So, okay, so on the left-hand side, we tend to have a lot of very small communities, right? And so it starts off with basically every node in its own community, and as T gets larger, the market time gets longer, we tend to find these bigger and bigger communities, and we end up with everything in one community at the far right side. So we see that there's some kind of interesting behavior, right, when we go from having quite a few communities to having very few. So this vertical line that you see here in the middle is an example. So we're going to look at the partition at that particular time. Okay. And so the thing that's more important or more interesting here is the variation information, which is shown in the light gray. So the variation information is basically a metric that we use to assess the variability of the outcomes that we run an algorithm, right? So we want small values, we want small variation corresponding to robust community structure. So when we're looking for good partition, we are looking for, it's a relative subjective thing, but we're looking for low values of variation information, demonstrating robustness. So one of the reasons why we chose that vertical line is because there's sort of a local minimum there. Okay. So what is heartening from this is really that, starting from sort of, the line and to the right, we have significantly lower variation information for our networks relative to the shuffle random networks. Okay. So we know that in this region of our parameter T, we have robust community structure. So that's effectively what we're trying to show here. We're trying to show that there's a region, our parameter T, for which we have community structure which is much more defined than some kind of random network. Right? We're not finding randomness, we're finding genuine community. This may seem a little bit over the top, but actually it's important to kind of show these kind of results to give robustness to your. Okay. Another check that we were interested in is, how different is the group or the node groupings compared to the official cluster, the official sort of node sectors, right? So industry sectors. So these are NICE industries, and NICE, of course, produces different sectoral classifications, and so we want to check, if we were to so we can, our matrix H guys, so we can actually build a H that corresponds to the NICE sectors, right? We just treat the node groupings as communities, and we can compute our stability. This is our R, small r, that we looked up earlier. And we see that actually the stability, so we have much better defined communities for our own communities relative to the NICE sectors. So this is effectively telling us that actually, using the NICE sector as a community definition for this network really doesn't make any sense. But there's a lot of information in this network which is not captured in the NICE sector. So that's another kind of interesting robustness test, but also something that, is, it sort of motivates in a sense this analysis, right? Because you can't just use the night sectors as given. We've got to actually discover ourselves what are the right groupings. Okay, so that vertical line that I mentioned, we're just going to have a look at the network structure. This is just to give you a bit of a sense. It's not, going to be relevant massively to the analysis. Okay, we've just given the communities some arbitrary names. We'll see them represented on the network in a second. So this is the adjacency matrix. It has been sorted. So rows and columns are sorted corresponding to our community, our partition. And we see that the light colored entries are large edge weights, right? The large numbers in our adjacency matrix. And so we just see that on the diagonal, right? The diagonal blocks, those are the edge weights within our community. We see some clear community structure there, right? We see that there's clearly blocks of edge weights that are dense, high edge weights in the center. So this is the same partition, just visualized. So as many of you I don't know, network visualizations are dangerous creatures because they are an artistic representation, right, of some underlying data set, and there's no right answer. So I was mentioning earlier the parallel policy equation, network visualization for parallel policy equation. Be careful with network visualization. So as I said, this is an artistic representation of that network structure that we just saw. I think the adjacency matrix is actually a better tool in this many times sense. And we have different, we have a bunch of different vectors. We actually manually did the labeling here, right? So we looked at the industries inside each community and we sort of, tried to label them. But they make sense, some more than others. We definitely have some industries that are more dominated by services, some that are more dominated by high complexity manufacturing, some that are low complexity manufacturing, etc. Textile manufacturing, I think that was very close. Yeah, so we didn't, this is really just to give you a sense of some of the structures of the network, but the actual manual labeling is really important for the final. Okay, so what we've done is we've identified a range of our parameter tau for which we have meaningful partitions, right? So for each partition, the network is divided into groups of nodes. And we want to, so we don't know what is the correct partition, right? We just know that for this range of tau, we have structure in the network, right? So often when community protection analysis is presented, quite often people say this is the right partition. I would be a little skeptical there because most networks there isn't really a right partition. There's a range of some parameter which produces that partition that's meaningful. Okay, so we're going to actually try to exploit that fact here. And we're not going to choose a particular partition, but we're going to keep a range of partitions corresponding to this tab. Okay, so what we're going to do is basically for each of the communities in all of these partitions, we're going to look at the relationship between the co-agglomeration network edges, right, within the community, and the same edges in the other layers, the neighboring connected layers. It's important to note that we only look for communities in the co-agglomeration network. We don't apply fusion detection to the other networks because we're interested in these sort of clusters, geoclusters. Okay, so this is our piece that I response figure 3. So I'm going to try to explain what this is. So we use a software to just ignore the colors for a second. So what we find when we look for partitions for different resolutions, they have communities of different sizes, right? So at the far right-hand side of the spectrum, we have at the top here, this is where all nodes are in the same community, right? And if we think about our previous time, we come back, we actually have smaller and smaller communities, right? And so we can actually, it's not a perfect mapping because it's not a completely nested structure, right? There's nothing in the algorithm that forces it to be nested. But in reality, it's fairly net that actually, you know, when we go from one community to two, and then it splits further through. So we used a software that builds dendrogram of these different communities. So effectively, at the top, we have organisms in one community, then it splits into two communities, those communities subdivide into the bottom, right? So this is, again, a representation of our network structure. And so the size of the blocks is equivalent to the size of the, so you can think of the y-axis as being kind of the power parameter, right, or time parameter. And the size of the blocks is proportional to the number of nodes in the community. Okay? And so for each of the communities, at each of the times, we try to look at the labor and input-output coefficient. And for the darker coefficients are communities that are more associated with labor. These, in the end, turn out to be services, transportation, and industry. The ones that are paler are ones that are more input-output, so they're heavy industry, things like that, construction. And then things in the middle, you know, as would be expected, some communities don't, you know, they have a fairly similar, you know, reliance on either one. You'll see some of the squares are white at the bottom. Those ones didn't have any statistical significance. So obviously, as you get more and smaller, things don't, you know, things start to, well, there's too few observations. Okay, so that's the general result. So what do we do to, so I think the general result here is that we do see clear patterns of differential importance in a sense for the channels across these sort of mesoscale communities. So I think what we have successfully done is shown that there is some kind of characteristic scale which lies between the full network and each individual node, where you see clusters of industries that share kind of similar sort of Marshallian externalities. What we did to try to validate this a little bit further was we had some data on years of education by industry. And so we were interested to see whether our industries that were more associated with the labor channel, whether they also had industries that had a high level of years of education. So this is ICOM's data on the mean years of education by worker. And so we basically looked at the relationship between our extracted coefficients, so these betas, and the years of education for each community. Now, as I previously mentioned, we have a lot of different partitions, right? And these partitions will have different numbers of communities in them, right? So this is an inherently noisy task. And so all of the lines, the pale lines in the background, these correspond to individual partitions. So in some cases, the line is a fit of 10 points because there's 10 communities. In some cases, the line is a fit of 2 points. Well, that's the extreme case, right? So we showed all of the lines for full transparency, but as you can see, the patterns are relatively robust in the sense that they all have the same sign, which I think is very heartening. And then the dark line is actually a pool of all of the communities across all partitions. And so that is the econometric results that we report. So, you know, as expected, we find a positive association between education and beta coefficient, similarly a negative correlation with the input-output one. So, seemingly industries that are much more reliant on input-output linkages tend to have lower years of education, which I guess is, you know, what you might expect. So that's, in a sense, our effort to independently corroborate our results. Right, so, okay, so that's more than the paper. So the paper is out on archive, but it has been accepted for publication in an upcoming book on networks and cities, edited by Zachary Beal and Steve Rosenblatt. So that will come out at some point, but the paper is online already. I won't repeat our conclusions, but as I mentioned earlier, the idea here is that if we're able to assign kind of what are the key important linkages for different types of industry clusters, and that should be relevant for industrial strategy, etc. So there are quite a few future directions, some of which I've already pointed out. You know, there's a lot of, we try to be very robust with respect to showing that the communities that we detect in the co-agglomeration network are robust, that they are, you know, but there are a lot of other types of robustness tests that one could apply. You know, one could look at different time periods. We try to be consistent with the previous papers, but one, you know, there certainly is more recent data available. You know, what does this look like for other types of economies and countries? There are better measures for labor linkages, etc., which would be interesting to explore as well. I think that, you know, as in paper 2, it was shown that the beta coefficients were helpful or, you know, improved the predictive power of relatedness model. Certainly that's something that we will be planning to, you know, apply these coefficients to, although I think in the previous case we just did a simple interaction term, and I'm thinking about whether we can, what else we can, if we take a sort of network perspective, how can we do something a little bit more sophisticated. So I think there's a lot of interesting avenues here, but we, yeah, this initial work tried to really stay consistent with previous work and try to be robust in what we did, but there's, you know, a lot of other avenues that we'll kind of come up with quite easily. Okay, I want to say a specific thank you to Frank Netka and Dario Delgado. It was certainly our work, our collective work that sort of led me on this path, and all of the data that was used in the third paper was data that was prepared. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
So, my research. Not really, it's just I'm using the nice classification to understand relatedness as a first step. And you don't really understand. It's just a classification made by smart. You don't really know why places are, why industries are classified together under one class. So I found that really, really interesting. And I have a very simple question. First of all, which digit level are you looking at?
Okay, do you want to continue?
Yeah, no, sorry.
So our main analysis is 4-digit level. Okay. Yeah. I think everything in all of my work is 4.
Okay. And the other question? Yes. Do you think it would be interesting or possible to make change? As you mentioned, in the future steps, it would be interesting to see over time how these communities changed. So you would also be maybe better able to follow technological change. So how did these communities change over time, and what implications does it have for observing technological change, which is very difficult to observe?
Yeah, so I think to observe something like technological change, you need quite lengthy longitudinal data, which is something that we sort of looked at in the first paper, but it was at a much higher level of aggregation. I think it was something like 18 industries, and we just looked at industries. I think, so I'm not really active in research with patent data, but I do understand that when people, my personal view is that, when I have this discussion in quite a few people, so my personal view, which is subject to change, is that this type of research is, or the models within this broad field are slightly better tailored to look at the diversification opportunities of left behind places. and that this data doesn't really say too much about the frontier, right? The extensive margin, because it's by definition not in there, right? And so I think on the one hand, there's not that much you can say about future growth potential of very complex spaces. But on the other hand, could you look back and see things that have happened and follow them over time? I definitely think so, right? So you should definitely see, you know, clusters of industries changing for sure. I'm surprised someone hasn't already done that, but I can't think of it off the top of my head. I personally, if I was interested in that though, would I use the so there are different types of networks, right? And so would I use the co-agglomeration network? So we use it here for a very specific purpose because we're interested in the relationship between these different networks. And we want to be consistent with an existing framework. But if I was just interested in the evolution of industry structures, industry networks over time, co-location is the noisiest of all of them, right? It's like the one where it's most difficult to find to detect patterns because there's so many different factors driving it. So I would probably be more tempted to use one of the other networks. So look at somebody must have looked at the evolution of the epidemics over time. I mean, they must have. I'm not an expert in that field, but they must have for sure. But the labor networks, I mean, that's certainly, it's just very, so one of the things I mentioned is that this correlation of occupation is like suboptimal, but it's the only available for the US. I have a lot of these labor mobility networks, which are much better at trying to connect those related things, which I like working with a lot. It's not available for the US, and they're really difficult to build and difficult to get hold of. And the data is usually you need microdata on workers. And so we have a project actually with the UK government at the moment where we might be able to compare those over time and look at clusters over time. But generally speaking, in order to do that, we need to be in the statistics office of the government. So I haven't seen anyone publish that yet. Yeah, you should be able to.
Last, you use data on the metropolitan statistical area spatial unit. Why? Why not on county data? And also particularly because you mentioned that it's especially interesting to look at the implications for left behind places, which are usually the more remote, rural.
Yeah. Well, there one should be, okay, yes, but they're not in conflict in a way. So in the second paper, we actually show results for county and state. But in the third paper, because that wasn't our purpose, it made sense, we took the city. The city won for building the matrices. In my view, the state is too coarse. It doesn't, like where you're basically correlating to make vectors, right? And so you want the level of aggregation that you think makes the most sense. I mean, I have another PhD student who is actually taking a continuous view and looking at how these things change and how the matrix or the network changes with respect to the definition by sequentially aggregating very small areas. But for the purposes of this, one has to choose a level of aggregation right to do the correlation at. And the state level in the US is too coarse, and the county level is probably too fine. And so the metropolitan area level makes the most sense just for measuring those co-location patterns. But that doesn't mean, so when you do the actual prediction of diversification of relate, you can do it at the county level or at any level. So there's like no conflict in the model. Yeah, so you can, so it was, I honestly don't think the state level makes I mean, okay, so we're doing something in the UK where there's 32,000 local area units in the UK, and one of my very important is currently trying to, based on commuting data, we can sequentially aggregate them, and we can compute this matrix for every possible time threshold, right? So we can sequentially aggregate all of those in one area, and we can look and then we can see the relationship, and we can see at what level of aggregation is the best. I have a paper based on Colombian data, which does something not too similar. So yes, you can play with all these things, but I think for the purposes of this, the metropolitan area was the best choice. Thank you.
And if we use from a different field, and the other question is, do you think we can add some information about the external life? Because not for agglomeration economy, but for external economy, it would be important to consider what the process of the relation.
Okay, let's just go one at a time. What was the first bit? The first bit was about the relationship to life sectors. Yeah, so that's what this figure is trying to. Okay, so here, yeah, so basically, I haven't done like a simple comparison, which other projects we have shown a very simple comparison between the two. But here, what I've done is I've basically taken the 9 sectors as a community and looked to see what the stability score is. So we see that it's much lower, which means it's that partition. So you remember the matrix H was an input to our stability metric. Higher stability means a better community structure. When we put the 9 sectors in as a partition, right, because they just define a partition, similar to any other partition, we find much lower values of stability for every time. So it's basically saying that the 9 sectors are not a good community structure. Yeah. But you could do something similar, much more simple, but because we have so many different partitions at different times, it's like a good way of summarizing. For every possible time, it's much worse. So it's basically saying that the 9 sectors are not a good representation of the structure. Yeah. Okay, second part.
Now, if the information related about
I'm not sure in this framework, maybe someone else can help. I haven't thought too much about that. I mean, so we're basically, in a way, this was a very tightly designed study because we were taking exactly the framework of the Elsevier paper and our paper. And so it was like a very, you know what I mean? Like we didn't really try to add new things, but we kept the same data and we kept the same metrics to make it all as tight as possible. But here we're looking at similarities, right? We're looking at the relationship between the location similarities and labor linkages. So I'm not sure how the X scores or anything would actually.
No, I was thinking this theory that maybe introduce new roads because they have to introduce in the external markets and develop new capacities.
But is that a determinant of why two? So this is really looking at the determinants of why two firms locate close to each other. Two firms in the industry. So it's like a very, yeah, it's a very, exactly. I think that's more the diversification stuff, which we haven't actually included in this study yet.
Actually, I was thinking about how the role of the state in this context? Because certification, if you think about, don't happen without intentionality, you know, without intentionality. So I think about it because I was began by the hierarchical conquerors. Have a, she said, have a different ambience of using it in the United States and in Europe. So my second question is, the configuration of the state in Europe, for example, could make different crystallization.
Definitely.
Here, what's the rule of the state in these two?
Yeah.
Because could you put in the other wild when you show pink area and red area?
Oh yeah.
Yes. Why someone is orange and white, other one is pink? The difference is explained only from the conjunction of variables of the companies, or have other possible variables connected to this. Sorry, I just complex.
No. Okay. So here we're just looking at association patterns.
Yeah.
Between sort of like patterns of co-location and patterns of linkages, of say neighbor linkages, right? Yeah. We don't say anything about. We just look for some kind of relationship between those two variables. We don't really include anything about. So the reasons why. There's a lot of noise, and I was mentioning earlier, it's a super noisy and tricky kind of data set to work with because there are a lot of other reasons, right? Why, yeah, so obviously some firms might move because there's really good workers, but another firm might move somewhere because the government has some subsidy and, try to put them, try to start a new cluster somewhere, and there's any number of other reasons why. So this is really trying to say, these are three key reasons why firms choose to locate where they do, but there's probably, I'm sure we could collectively come up with a list of 10 more that, and so the question is, can you try to capture some of those by extending this framework? Maybe. I haven't given it too much thought, but, but in this case, you need some kind of similarity between firms, right? So if you wanted to think about some kind of state role, you would need to come up with some data source that captures some kind of similarity between industry and state intervention. There's nothing that comes to mind that would be easy to do, but I'm not saying it's not important, it just isn't here. We are very narrowly focused on these different channels, just these three channels. What was the other part of your question?
Yeah, it's maybe about the state role in this.
Yeah.
My company, for example, we had an input cluster of innovation in IT, but the proximity between firms, the similarity and between goals was constructed by the state, and for ambience that promote the conservation of this firm and the continuity. The continuity of this cluster is frequently promoted by the state.
Yeah.
So, in spite of the similarity and co-agglomeration and everything, the state have a clear role in this process.
So I think this analysis could be more useful, less as an explanator of state interaction, but more as a potentially down the road as a policy aid for deciding what are the key channels by which they could attract certain firms, to try to understand why firms in certain industries choose where they locate, right? So if they want to incentivize or offer tax breaks or build specific facilities, should they be thinking about, putting in place like the university with the right, training, or should they be thinking about building roads, or putting in electricity, or should they think about, improving facilities for customers? You know what I mean? I think this is really potentially helping policymakers understand the differences between firms or groups of firms, types of firms that tend to cluster together. What are the driving factors? So you don't decide, well, media, I mean, it's a silly example, but you don't pick an industry that you want to attract and build a lot of roads and land for it, and then decide actually they're not going to come because the workers aren't there. And I think that's something that does happen, right? That actually, government departments, might go and lots of industrial parks fail. I'm not an expert in this field, but a lot of industrial parks have failed because they put in all the physical infrastructure, but there really isn't the local population that are adequately skilled, or there isn't a lot of things that are needed are missing, and so they're not successful. So I think if you're trying to conduct industrial policy, this could be beneficial in trying to help you understand what are the important things for a particular type of firm, rather than purely anecdotal evidence, which might be a route behind the need to fail.
So if I can share, I was like, because presumably how it has to go with the
Yeah, so I think increasingly the two, and one of the reasons why we didn't focus so much on knowledge sharing as a separate channel is that increasingly that's true. I think when these 3 channels were originally proposed, there was the labor pooling was a more general term to get basic skills, basic necessary skills, to have a large enough labor force, but they were thinking more in terms of workers for factories, and that it wasn't necessarily sort of very high level knowledge, but it was sort of basic skills, and there were benefits to being able to sort of having a bit more responsibility, that if you were labeled some workers, they could hire them. They have a bit more of this kind of thinking in mind, and the knowledge sharing and thinking operating at a different level, at sort of R&D level, right? The idea. And so that's why patent data was used to estimate that channel. But I think for a couple of reasons, so I think the sort of the very highly skilled labor now, as you're thinking, you value ideas as well as kind of access to labor pool. And I think if you were to use labor flow as a proxy, you might just assume those 2 channels and one to find one here. So I think yes, you're right. And also not much statistical. Yeah, so I think patent data is just it just covers just a small fraction of activity that I think, improving our understanding of the labor channels. So all of the community detection was on the co-agglomeration network. We only looked at, so we found the range of partitions, which corresponded to this time parameter in our community detection algorithm. So basically, there's no such thing as one partition usually for a network, that's correct. We can have a range of partitions for a network that are correct at different scales. So the largest scale, you might have just a few very big communities, and then you might have a another partition that has lots of similar communities, and they would both be interesting and valuable. So what we try to do is we don't throw away that information, we try to keep that information. So we end up having a range of partitions in the same network.
Right, and then how do you recommend which community
So we actually, we return to the original framework and we look at the links inside the communities, and we correlate the links inside each of the communities between the co-agglomeration and the labour, and we do the same with each of the separate. So in that way, we try to basically associate each community channel. That's more important.
And how do you do that?
Yeah, so here's the data that we used. Yeah, so we have this is all US data, and we have the labor is just a correlate. So if you have for each industry, you have a vector of employment by occupation. The labor linkage, the similarity between two industries, the correlation of those vectors. And then for infinite, what we just use is infinite table.
Okay. Yeah. Just as a closing for the talk now, so if you were very excited policymakers right now and you have to deliver a report tomorrow, what would be your take-home message?
And my take-home message is that economic complexity 2.0 is to start thinking about the types of capabilities, right? If we're going to use these diversification models, we can be much more specific about what it is to have a capability overlap between two products. And so this is the direction that the research is heading. We're not quite there yet to make policy with these estimates, but we should in the near future be able to really develop the models that look at predicting diversification patterns and be much more specific about the channels that we need to leverage in order to facilitate that.
So the message is can't use research.
Good point.
So like there's probably instances where there should have been type of co-agglomeration, but it didn't happen.
But do we know when there should have been co-agglomeration? Do we have another data set to? As I'm trying to say, how would we know that there should have been co-agglomeration? I'm not saying that that's not a good point. This is super noisy because. We're just trying to basically figure out how much of observed patterns can we explain with these different linkages. But we don't really have like a metric of what should occur, if that makes sense. Or I don't know if I'm following your question actually, maybe I'm not following that.
Like you talked things like that.
Okay. So those are just industries. The dots.
Right. Yeah. But there could be type of co-agglomeration of simply because of distance, right? Or is that not I'm asking if there could be co-agglomeration because those industries somehow separately the same.
Oh yeah, there could be. We don't know. So that's exactly kind of what we're trying to do. Is we're trying to figure out are there some patterns that follow so the left hand side, our co-agglomeration index is not. It's just a metric that describes what is co-agglomeration with what. It doesn't really say why. No, it doesn't say anything about how it happens. It just says these things are present in roughly the same areas. And then the right hand side of our framework is basically here's 3 channels that may be important can we find an association, basically? But there could be any number of other channels. And so it turns out there is a very strong association, and growing association with these ideal labor linkages. But we don't have a sort of, we're just trying to basically disentangle, in a sense, whether we can associate observed patterns with other types of linkages. But yeah, there could be any other reasons.
Okay, thank you very much.
No problem.